Welcome, yogis. Today's class is basics. We'll be taking things a little bit slower, and I'll give you a bit more explanation as to what we're doing. If you have blocks, that will make transitions a little bit easier. As a substitute for blocks, a couple thick books stacked up should do you just fine. Mat is also great, but if you don't have a yoga mat at home, having some open floor space and maybe a blanket handy will just help to pad the knees. Outside of that, I'm excited to get moving. Let's get started. All right, friends, if you have blocks or block substitutes, just have that towards the top of your mat and off to the side. We'll use them in a little bit. To get started, we're going to lay down on our back. So go ahead and make your way down. You can grab behind your thighs to make that transition easier. And then I'm going to have you knees bent, feet on the floor. Your hands can either be by your side or placed lightly on your frontal hip bones. Close your eyes and just begin to notice your breath. Feel the movement of your breath beneath your hands. And then see about creating balance between your inhales and exhales. If it's possible, you might draw a breath in, invite a brief hold at the top, and then an easy breath out with that same brief hold at the bottom. A few more rounds of this, lengthening your breath any amount more. Start to shift your awareness to your physical body. By laying in this way, we have the feedback of the floor to give us some information. So as we acknowledge the shape of the spine, we know that it has natural curves. Those curves are built in such a way to carry the load of our body as efficiently as possible. What sometimes happens as the spine gets misshaped due to our postural patterns, that load sometimes is put in places that aren't as efficient, which then causes pain. First off here, just notice how there should be some space underneath your low back. Right? That's your lordotic curve. And then you feel how it's grounded through the thoracic spine, that kind of space where your ribs connect in the back. And then there's another space up by the cervical spine, just right underneath your neck. So again, those curves are meant to be there. We'll work with those curves. Notice if your chin is charging towards the ceiling. You see if you can just narrow that down a little bit. Come back to neutral. These things change with time. So if there are any postures or adjustments that are difficult to do, you're just aware of them. You do the best you can to fit in with those, but let it come with time, right? Any little shift, any little awareness is going to help you to create change. From here, let's start to draw both knees into the chest. Now as you do that, grab a hold of your knees and notice right away how there's been a change in the shape of your spine. Now That lordotic curve has gone away as your low back is grounded, right? We're more rounded. Now, if you were to lift your forehead up towards your knees, the whole spine is curling, is rounded. And then you could try rocking up and down the spine a few times, just massaging out the back. Coming back towards stillness, letting your head settle. And then you could also do a few rocks side to side, accessing the low back and just massaging it out a little bit. Let's come back again to stillness. Grab a hold of your left knee and extend your right leg forward. If this feels like too much, place your right foot on the floor. Just keep a bend in your knee. Otherwise, if your right leg is hovering, that's totally fine. Let's be mindful, though, to spin the kneecap and the toes towards the ceiling. Pull your left knee closer towards your chest, and you can explore guiding your knee just a little bit wider towards the armpit and then drawing it in. That often will provide you the ability to snug in a little closer. Breathe to the through your right heel. And take one more belly breath. As you're ready, we'll simply switch. The right knee will come in. Left leg will extend forward. And again, if needed, just keep your left foot on the floor with your knee bent. Try drawing your right knee a little wider and then snugging it in a bit closer. Spiral your left toes and kneecap towards the sky. And also notice if the leg has kind of winged out to the side. Right, if you need to, you can look down, see what's going on, and take the left leg back in towards neutral and parallel. Again, here you might notice the chin has charged up to the ceiling. Once again, narrow it down as best you can. Last belly breath. And then we'll guide both knees back into the chest. Draw your knees across the body to the right, and we'll set up a twist. The left arm will reach wide. The right hand will come onto your knees. Now you may find that this is a tight position. If the knees are separated, it's all good. If you need to use your fist and put it underneath your knees, that might help you to get a little support and feel more comfortable in this shape. In a similar way, if your left shoulder is hovering off the floor, as long as there's no pain there, you can get a good stretch in the pec. But if it's painful, rolling your upper back to the ground and just letting the knees lift will help you. All right, let's take it back to center, and we'll just swap it over to the other side. The knees will drape to the left. The right arm will reach wide, and the left hand grounds your knees. In the twists, it's creating some compression in the abdomen. So we'll experience some tightness. This is something we can work with to detox in a way, to cleanse and refresh the midsection. So you're breathing big, creating maybe a little more tightness, but then exhale and sinking into the space you've created. Now, we'll keep the knees draped over to the left. Simply bring your right arm across your body and you'll press yourself up to a seated position. Come into a cross-legged seat. If this position is difficult to sit in, you could take a blanket and put that under your seat for a little lift. You could also use one of your blocks and sit on that as well. So if we're talking again about the spine, by elevating your seat, you're more able to sit up tall and work with the natural curvature of the spine. If we force our seat flat and it's tight, we'll often be in this kind of rounded shape, right? So instead, we want to do whatever we can to sit up tall. Let's take a breath in. On an exhale, twist to your right. Take your left hand to your knee or your thigh. Your right fingers will tent behind you, and you'll start this twist. Remembering again to breathe big, fill space, And then the exhales, you might be able to spiral a little bit deeper. Turn your gaze past your right shoulder and get a bit more of a stretch in your neck and face. Take one more full breath in. Exhale, come back to center. Now, just to keep things even, switch the cross of your legs. Right? Oftentimes we pick the favorite one all the time, over and over, so this one might feel a little different, but it's good. Take a breath in, lift. Breath out, twist to your left. Left fingers come behind, the right hand catches your knee. Spiral your gaze past your left shoulder. A few more full breaths. Now try not to be leaning on the back of hand too much. Use tented fingertips to help prop you up. And then exhale, come back around to center. Let's make our way into tabletop. So if you're able, you can just roll over your shins. Get yourself organized back on the mat, fingers spread and stacked in your joints. So now we'll move into some cat-cows. This is again a spinal movement. Breathe in, let your belly drop as you look forward. So you're sort of sticking out your tailbone and moving into that low back curve, right? Exaggerating it in a way. On an exhale, press through your hands, round your back. Move your heart into your back body. Lift your belly button. Then again, inhale, drop the belly, look forward. Exhale, press and round. Take a few more of these, just moving at your own rhythm. Your breath tells you when to move. So we're looking in this simple way to sync breath and movement. In time, this becomes more of a meditative process where we can let go of all of our worries of the day, let go of our doubts, let go of overthinking, and shift into a state of flow. Come back to a neutral spine. Now, if you have blocks, I'll invite you to bring them in now. You'll take those shoulder distance apart at the top of your mat so your hands can come on them. If you don't have blocks, that's okay. You can do this on the floor as well. Tuck your toes. We're going to lift to a downward facing dog. Knees will lift, the hips extend up and back. So now the purpose of the blocks is to lift the height of the hands, put more load in the legs, which is used to taking them. Have a couple breaths. If you're feeling rounded in your back, bend your knees a bit. Extend back to the spine. This is another way to sort of get around any tightness in the body so we can once again work with the natural curvature of the spine and find neutral length. All right, lower your knees back down to the mat. Now the blocks can be handy to stay here for transitions. We're going to step the right foot between the blocks. Now if you get the foot only halfway up there, take your hand behind your ankle and just help your foot forward where you want it. From here, press down through your feet. Take your hands onto your knee and help yourself up. Sit back a little bit so that your hip and knee and the back leg is stacked. And we'll take the hands to the hips. So again, working with the spine. First, we'll do what we don't quite want in this posture, which is arcing the spine. So I want you to stick your heart out, just like that cow back we were doing in our tabletop position. You'll feel in this place maybe a little compression in the low back, the way that the pelvis is sort of spilling forward, right? We're spilling out in the front body. Now instead, round. Feel that your navel is drawing in, and you should get some stretch in the front of the left hip. That's a good thing. So now we're going to work with this shape. Just upright the spine, and then you might bend the front knee a little more. You'll notice that if you're feeling a little tight, right, the farther you go, it's going to again pull the pelvis forward and get you back in that low back curve, and again, some compression and pain potentially. So our work is to draw the navel in while exploring the depth, finding the balance between the two places. Let's sweep the arms to the sky if you're feeling okay for it. Reach up through your arms, and you may feel and notice a lift of the rib cage. Right, so we've got one tool, the tipping back of the pelvis to help the low back. The other tool is the length, right? The more you reach upwards, the more lift and the less compression. Take your hands now behind your head with your elbows wide. We'll take a breath in here. Breath out, twist right. Don't worry about how far you go, just twist. And inhale, come back to center. 2 more of those. Exhale, twist to the right. And back to center. 1 more time, twist to the right. And back to center. Now we'll take that again. Exhale, twist right. Hold it here. Engage your inner thighs. And then just open your arms. Reach beyond the fingers. Peel the chest open. And then again, bend the elbows, hands behind the head. Turn and come back to neutral. Let's do that twice more. Breathe in. Exhale, twist right. Open your arms. Bend the elbows. Come back to neutral. Last time, breathe in. Exhale, twist to the right. Open your arms. Bend the elbows. Come back to neutral. Reach your arms up to the sky 1 more time. Breathe in. Exhale, hands come down to blocks or floor. Sweep your right leg back to tabletop. And then let's sink it back to child's pose. The knees will come wide, the toes come together. Hands can stay on the blocks for an extra shoulder stretch, or you're welcome to move those off to the side. Let your head settle. If the floor is feeling far away, you can stack your palms, put those underneath your forehead, or even make a fist or 2 in the hands to make up the difference. Just a couple moments to breathe. Now let's come on right back up. Slide your blocks into place if you're using them. And remembering you can change the height of the blocks too, right? If you need some more room, just lift the height of the blocks a little bit. Let's draw the left foot forward. If needed, give yourself that little bit of assist. And then once you're ready, crawl your hands onto your left thigh and come upright. So again, as a way to play, let's take the hands to the hips. Sit your weight back so your back knee and hip are stacked. And then we'll breathe in, arc the spine. Notice how your pelvis is tipping forward, right? The front of your hip bone is coming closer to the thigh as you do this. Now the opposite action, draw your belly in, round your back. Feel the sensation in the front of your right hip. Keep that going on, just upright your spine, and then try diving a little deeper through the front knee. The arms can extend up when you're ready. Press your feet into the floor. Left foot anchors down. The top of your right foot anchors down. Reach, lengthen to create more lift, less weight and compression on the low back. And then the hands will come behind the head. Take a breath in, lengthen. Breath out, twist to the left. And back to center. Exhale, twist left. Inhale to center. Last time, exhale left. Inhale to center. All right, this time we'll take our breath in, lengthen. Breath out, twist left, stay here. Open your arms. Again, don't worry about the angle that you're at. Just work with the twist that you have and reach beyond your fingers. Spread your front body. Bend your elbows. Come back to center. Let's try that twice more. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, twist left. Open the arms. Bend the elbows. Back to neutral. Last time, inhale, lengthen. Exhale, twist left. Open the arms. Bend the elbows. Back to neutral. Take a sweep to the sky, breathe in. Exhale, hands come down to blocks or floor. Sweep your left leg back behind you. And now you have the option here to either take your child's pose or perhaps lift back to a downward facing dog. If you're taking down dog, you can pedal your legs out. That means bending one knee and then bending the other knee. Just shifting the hips a bit, side to side. As you're ready, we'll lower the knees back down. If you're in child's pose, lift up to tabletop, and we'll just move those blocks off to the side. All right, so in your stacked position in table, I'm going to ask that you walk your knees back 3 or 4 inches. Now, once again, shift your shoulders so they're over your wrists. So now your hips are a little forward of your knees. Stay toned in your belly. Engage your belly. And then you'll bend your elbows and slowly lower all the way down to the mat. Point your toes and bring your legs closer together. Press all 10 toenails into the mat. Wrap your elbows in towards your rib cage. And then it's an inhale, Cobra. Lift your chest. Now we don't worry about going too high here. Exhale, lower down. As an experiment to see what is actually doing the work, I want you to do another Cobra, but hover your hands off the ground. Activate your legs, feel your kneecaps lift, and then breathe in, lift the chest. All right, so now we don't have as much opportunity to use the strength of the arms to just press into a deeper back bend. We have to use the muscles in our back and our core. Now exhale, lower. So let's do one more, marrying those two. Yes, we're using the hands, we're using the strength of the arms, but we're also using the back and trying not to go much higher than that height of the last version. Here we go. Breathe in. Cobra. Lift the heart. So we've got some support here, maybe just a little bit more height, but nothing too extreme. Let's take one more breath in. Exhale, lower down. Press through your hands, come back to a child's pose. Hips shift back towards your heels. Now we'll make a little bit of a flow here. Come up to table, but round your back like your cat pose. Belly comes up, the spine is rounded. Now look forward, bend your elbows, look all the way down to the floor. Point your toes, breathe in, Cobra. Breathe out, lower down. Press back, child's pose. Inhale, cat back, roll up, lower all the way down to your belly. Cobra, inhale. Exhale, lower. Shift it back to child's. So if you're starting to get the hang of this, just keep going through the cat back, down to the belly. You can slow this down or speed it up. Every time you take your Cobra, you might be able to get a little bit higher as the spine gets warmer. No pressure with that, right? Just feel it out. What does your body want? Finish up one more round. And eventually it's back to child's. Just hang out there for a few breaths. Soften your elbows. Let your weight settle. And as always, if the head isn't comfortably resting down, just grab some support to lift your head. Make your way back up to table. Okay, stack your joints. You may notice when you're in this neutral position that you've sagged through the belly, right? So if there's a little arc in your spine, lift your navel, keep your back nice and flat. So we're going to come into a plank pose. If full plank is too much, I'm going to have you start by stepping your feet back, right? Test out the plank, and then you can always drop your knees. The idea is to have those knees behind your hips, so there is still quite a bit of work happening in the belly. Choose your variation of plank pose, either full plank with the legs straight or the knees grounded. Either way, the work is the same. Engage your belly, Feel the little bit of lift of the frontal hip bones, kind of like tucking your tailbone. We'll take another full breath in. And then my full plank, folks, drop your left knee to the ground. My modified plank, folks, just slide your left knee a little bit farther forward and straighten your right leg. Take your left hand a little more center mat. Pivot your left shin towards the long edge of the mat and spin your right heel down. So you're coming to this modified side plank variation. The tendency is to sit in the hip. So if that's happening, can you press your hip forward a little bit more and find more flattening through your whole right side body? Now we'll take this a step farther if you're into it. Let's see if you can hover your right foot off the ground. If all is well, swim your top arm overhead, bicep by your ear. Now you can stay still. If you're up for it, draw your elbow towards your knee. They don't need to touch, but they might. Inhale, lengthen out. Twice more like that. Curl it in. And inhale to lengthen. One more time, curl. Inhale, lengthen. And then square it down, tabletop. Let everything pivot and just come back to neutral. All right, from here, once again, it's either child's pose as your neutral or a downward facing dog with or without the blocks. Find a space where you can breathe and find even length in your back. If your back is rounded, remember to utilize the bend in your knee to settle that. Press through the hands a little bit more. And then lower your knees back down to the mat. So we'll take that plank pose one more time. It's either full plank or modified plank. Step your feet back. If you're taking modified, just lower your knees down. So it's a sort of tucking of the tailbone, a way to squeeze your glutes and engage your belly. Extend the crown of your head forward. Move your shoulders away from your ears. Take another full breath. My plankers, drop your right knee down. My modified plankers, draw your right knee a little bit farther forward and then straighten your left leg. So as we shift to the side plank, the right shin will pivot. The left foot will spin down, and the left arm comes up to the sky. Once again, notice if you're sitting out in your hip, and try to stack joints. Press your hips forward. If you're up for more, lift your left foot off the ground. Now, if your right shin is lifting, that's going to make you wobbly. So instead, press down through the top of your right foot. For more, reach your right arm overhead, bicep by the ear, and then you either stay still or elbow towards knee. Crunch and lengthen. Twice more. Curl it in and lengthen. Last time. Crunch and lengthen. Square it down. Tabletop. Choose your neutral. Either child's pose or downward facing dog. Find your steady breath, balanced inhales and exhales. We sometimes lose it as transitions and postures get complicated, but it's in these neutral moments that you can check back in, come back to center. Now, if you're down in a child's pose, come up towards down dog, and then we're going to just walk the feet forward to the top of the mat towards your hands. The hands can lift as they need to. And then we'll take the hands to the shins. Inhale, find a flat back. Now again, if you're finding that you're rounded, bend your knees to help you get more of the extension. And then exhale, fold forward. Come all the way up to stand. Sweep your arms high to the sky. Exhale, hands to heart. All right, friends. Sweep your arms up and overhead. We're going to interlace the fingers. Let your pointer finger release and just create an X in your thumbs. Lengthen up, breathe in. Side bend to the right, breathe out. Even weight in both feet, and perhaps a little turn towards the sky. Breathe in, come back up through center. Recommit, one more inhale to lengthen. Exhale to the left, side bend. Rise back to center. Take your hands to your heart and then down onto your hips. So we'll take our first standing posture, other than Tadasana, moving into Warrior One. So with your hands on your hips, first, we'll shift the weight into the right foot, step your left foot back, and you're going to spin your back heel to the ground. So the idea is you've got about a 45-degree angle in your back foot. Your front knee and ankle are trying to get stacked. And if you're feeling like this is really close, that your knee can go beyond your ankle pretty easy, then lengthen your stance a little bit. And the other end, if you're too far and you can't quite get your knee where you want it, right, then you might step back and shorten. Now the trick here is our Warrior One is more of a forward-facing posture. So yes, we're trying to spiral the chest, but if we over-spiral, if we overcommit in the upper body, the back leg might start to do weird things. The heel might lift, the knee might bend, you may even get some pain in the joint. We don't want any of that. So our anchor is the back foot. Press it down, especially the razor edge, that pinky toe edge of your foot. Engage your back leg. Stack the joint in the front knee, and then whatever twist happens, happens. When you're ready, the arms can reach up overhead as the cherry on top. Warrior One, Virabhadrasana 1. In a similar way, this posture can sometimes get stuck in the low back, tightness in the hip flexors from sitting a lot of the time. So to counter that, the belly draws in. We're trying to lift the frontal hip bones. Let's take a couple more breaths. Just be here. Exist in the posture. All right, now we're going to bring the hands down to the floor, maybe blocks. So as the hands come down, you could slide your blocks in, spin your back heel off the ground, and you can either be in runner's lunge with your back leg straight or low lunge with your back knee on the ground. Take your left hand to block or floor, and then reach your right arm to the sky to twist. Now again, you could start with low lunge, and if you're feeling up for it, try lifting your back knee for a runner's twist. Notice what your right knee is doing. Sometimes the knee likes to twist with us, so we want to hug in towards midline. Maintain the stack of joints and just allow whatever twist is there in the torso to happen. Let's take one more inhale, reach up. Exhale, take your right hand back down a block or floor, and then we'll step forward to the top of the mat through 1, 2, or 3 steps. Feel free to leave your blocks there if you're using them. Hands to your shins, lift halfway, flat back, bend the knees if needed. Exhale, lower down. Rise to stand. Extend your arms overhead. Hands to heart, exhale. All right. Hands again can come to our hips. We'll shift the weight into the left foot, step the right foot back, and spin the back heel down. Play around with the stance to figure out how long you're going. And we can also think about how wide the feet are. So one loose guideline is heel to heel alignment if you were going to draw a line down the mat. A lot of these alignment cues are based on a male's body from the traditional teachings. So in a woman's body, you might actually feel better with a slightly wider stance. So heel coming back, maybe having a few inches between heel and heel. Having a slightly wider stance may also help you to twist a little bit more, so you play. Anchor the razor edge of your back foot down. Engage your back leg, and then whatever twist comes, comes. Sweep your arms up and settle. Press your feet down into the ground. Feel the reach through the arms is once again lifting the rib cage and decompressing your back. Now it's in these moments of stillness that we find our challenge, right? We listen to the conversation happening in our mind. Sometimes it's negative self-talk. Sometimes it's, oh boy, I want to get out of this pose. So the practice is not only these physical postures, but it's listening to that voice, recognizing your patterns, and making a choice to stay, right? To say, no, I am strong. I can hold this for another few breaths. All right, we'll bring the hands down to the blocks as your back heel is going to lift and spiral. And then again, you have the choice to bring your knee down or keep it lifted. Take your right hand to your block or the floor. Reach your left arm to the sky and twist. And again, if you're starting in the low lunge, you could test it out. Try lifting the back knee, see what happens. In addition to hugging in towards midline, we can also lengthen the posture by drawing the knee forward and the back heel backward. Take one more inhale, open, lift. Exhale, take your left hand back down, and then it's a step forward through 1, 2, or 3 steps. Let's shift those blocks off to the side. And actually, if you have them, put them on the highest height off the top of your mat. Then you can just forget about them. Bring your hands onto your shins, take a flat back, breathe in. Exhale, bow forward. Rise to stand, sweep your arms up. And hands to heart, exhale. All right, friends. Try your feet hips width distance, and we'll take a chair pose. So there's 2 different types of chairs. I'll explain them to you here. Sweep your arms up, sink low. If the arms are too much, just bring your hands down to your heart. Now in the chair pose, we are trying to balance out the curvature in the spine. So sometimes we are trying to get really deep, and that causes this back bend, right? That's a little bit too much. On the other end, if we're trying too hard to drop the tailbone and draw the belly in, we get stuck and we can't quite lift the chest. So we're trying to find that place in the middle. Now, if your feet are hips width, we're going to hug the knees out or widen them out so that we keep the knees in a healthy place. Sink a little bit deeper. Let's take another 2 breaths. And then bow forward and fold. Find a ragdoll. You'll grab loosely opposite elbows, just kind of weave the arms. Feel free to soften your knees, and then just let the body be heavy. Take a little sway side to side. All right, friends, let the arms dangle towards the ground. Heel toe your feet together to touch, but leave about an inch of space between your. So we'll come back to chair. Bend your knees, sweep your arms up. Again, you can always bring your hands to your heart instead. So now in this chair, same actions with the spine, right? We're not trying to arc too much. We're not tucking too much. We've got the sweet spot. The purpose of having the legs together is now we can squeeze in and the knees work as a barrier for one another. So this is, again, a safe space. If we do that with the feet wide and hug in, we're working in this knock knee place, and especially for women, we're already in that position. So we want to train the outer hips and glutes to work so our knees stay healthy. In this case, though, we're squeezing in. We're getting some nice strengthening through the inner thighs. We're sinking a little bit deeper. Let's take 2 more breaths. Stay with me. Now this time, stand up through your legs. Reach your arms up. Find a little bit of a back bend. And exhale, hands to heart. All right. Hands can again be on your hips or at heart center, whichever you prefer. You could even just let them dangle. I'm going to let them dangle. My shoulders are feeling the work. Let's take the feet out a little wider. And then all we're doing is rolling the ankles around. Now you'll notice as I do this, I am in fact rolling onto the top of my feet. So you might get a lot of snaps and cracks. That is good work. We don't pay a whole lot of attention to the feet, but it is what we stand on, right? We rely on our feet every single day. So foot health is really important. Let's switch the rotation if you haven't already. So we're starting to move towards standing postures, balancing postures. Let's switch to the other foot, circle it out. So oftentimes when we balance, our instinct is to try to grip the ground like we can hold on to the floor. Surprise, surprise, the foot doesn't do that very successfully. So let's switch the direction if you haven't already. So our work today is going to be to open up the feet, right? That's what this is helping us to do. So that way, let's come back to even foot, you can spread your toes wide, right? Spread them out as wide as you can and settle them into the floor. So as we start to shift our weight into one foot, again, just notice if that's your tendency to start to scrunch and then think again about opening, right? It's like trying to balance on a fist. You're going to be much more successful balancing with a full open palm than on a scrunched up fist. Now, as we do this balance, if you want to come over to a wall, so you have that wall space, that's perfect. If you have your blocks, that could be an also way to check your balance in this next posture we're coming into. So with your feet hips width apart, spread your toes. Let's start with the weight coming over to the left foot. And first, we'll just take hands to heart and right knee to the chest. Bend your standing leg, cross your ankle, and squat down to figure 4. So again, if your balance is okay, but a little bit rocky, you can have the blocks here for a little balance check, or of course, you're near the wall. If you want to play a little bit more with balance, keep your hands at your heart. Now, something to be wary of here, oftentimes the right hip in this case wants to dip down. So your work is to keep your pelvis neutral. Whatever height this knee is fine. The effort is to move it towards the ground, but not if it's going to pull the whole pose off center. All right, now take your left hand to your hip or the wall. Take your right hand to your right ankle and help yourself to a tree pose. So you might put your foot on your inner thigh. You might find any spot on your leg or maybe even a kickstand with a little toe on the floor. We are trying to keep the hips aiming forward, and then any amount of opening in the right hip is good, right? That's our purpose of the pose, this external rotation, but again, not to pull the pose off center. So you find your place, press leg into foot and foot into leg. Now, if you practice a lot of yoga, you may hear a lot of times to not put your foot on your knee. I've taken a lot of trainings, including therapeutic training, and I promise you the amount of force that you can create in this foot is not going to dislocate your knee, so don't worry too much about it. If that's where your foot lands, it's fine. Just focus on your balance. All right, now I know it's a lot of information. Let it sink in. Take what resonates, let go of the rest. And then we'll just simply put the right foot on the floor. All right, let's switch sides. So again, open your right foot, spread your toes. If you're using the wall, just turn your body so that the other hand is near it, the hand of the standing leg. We'll come over into the right foot, starting with left knee to chest, and then cross your ankle and squat through your standing leg. Now again, you can use your blocks if you have them. Now another thing I want you to be mindful of is your ankle of your standing foot. A lot of times we're either caving in the inner arch or rocking out to the outer edge and the foot lifts. So just be aware of where you're at and try to work the opposite, right? If you're caving in the inner arch, can you spread your toes more? Can you press down through your big toe more? And I suppose the same is true if you're going out to the outer edge. Keep the weight in your big toe. Now the left hand's going to come to the ankle, the right hand to hip. You can either help the foot up onto your right inner thigh or find any place on the leg, including kickstand. Whatever tree you're working with, squeeze your butt. As much as you can squeeze your glutes, that's going to help flatten the front of the pose. Again, slightly lifting frontal hip bones and just neutralizing the pelvis. Press foot into leg and vice versa. Feel a connection into midline. Right? Midline is this line that runs from, in this case, between the feet, between the legs, up through center, and all the way to the crown of the head. All right, let's slowly release. 2 feet to the floor. And the ankles might be feeling it a little bit. Just roll them out. Give them some life. All right, come back to an even stance. Let's take a breath in. Sweep your arms overhead. Breath out. Bow forward and fold. Just move your blocks off to the side if they're there. Hands to your shins. Find a flat back. And then exhale, bow forward. Take your hands to the mat. Walk it back to your plank pose. And then again, if you need to lower your knees, do so. Come all the way down to your belly. And let's stack the palms, one on top of the other. Set your forehead down on your hands and settle. Walk your legs together to touch. Lift your head so you can reach your arms back behind you. And we'll take our Locust Pose. On a breath in, everything lifts off the ground. Go ahead, inhale, up. Lift your legs, lift your arms, lift your chest. Reach back through your fingers and your toes. And every inhale, a little bit more lift of the front body. Stay for 3, for 2, and 1. Lower down, bring a cheek to the floor and relax. Allow your shoulders to slump down and soften. All right, let's take it again. Bring your head towards neutral. Legs come closer together. Engage your legs, point your toes, and then inhale, up you go. Everything lifts. Squeeze your glutes, extend the toes back and up. And then let's try to lift the right leg a little higher. Bring the left leg up to meet it. Lift your left leg a little higher. Right leg up to meet it. Stay for 3, for 2, and 1. Lower down, opposite cheek to the ground. One more round. Bring your gaze to neutral. Point your toes, zip your legs together. Here we go. Inhale, lift up. Breathe. Notice if you're gripping in any place, clenching in any place. Looking for ease within the work. So if that means you dial down to 60%, give yourself a break. Let's stay for 3, for 2. Now, slide your hands forward under your shoulders. Let your legs relax. Press back to a tabletop and just stay here for a moment. Just let things settle into neutral. After you take a breath or two, we'll start to sway the hips side to side. Now, as the hips go left, peer over your right shoulder towards your feet. As your hips go right, peer over the left shoulder. Take these back and forth. Back to neutral. Sink back to one more child's pose. Toes together, knees wide. You can try with arms extended out in front. Press your hands into the ground to get your sits bones back and down towards your heels. Feel a slight rounding in your back. And then imagine your breath going into your low back. Visualize your low back. Expand your breath to the low belly. And feel the expansion and widening of your hips. Take it back up through tabletop. Swing your legs out in front of you. And then we're going to come to lay down on our back. So once again, you can grab behind your legs, help yourself all the way down. And then we'll find ourselves in the same place we started. So with your knees bent and your feet on the floor. Take your feet to hips distance and then as close to your sits bones as is comfortable. Your sits bones are those two bony points in your pelvis. When you're sitting upright, you can feel them. You might try tickling your heels. That's again a loose guideline. If you can't quite reach them, no problem. Take your arms now by your sides. We're setting up our bridge pose, a back bend. If you have a mat, you can scoop up the edges of the mat and then try to pull the mat apart. You'll feel that help to open your chest. Otherwise, you're also welcome to simply press your hands down. Start by lifting your hips just an inch or two off the ground. Pull your heels towards your shoulders. So that's a movement of your knees forward. It's different than lifting your foot and stepping it back, right? It's just a little pull. Now, lift your hips a little bit higher. Press down through your hands. You might walk your shoulders in a little bit closer and just hang out here. Again, make sure you can breathe. Press your feet into the ground like you're standing on your feet. One more full breath in. Exhale, roll your spine back down to the earth. Take your feet out as wide as the mat and just let your knees fall towards one another. Close your eyes and enjoy a few breaths. All right, let's do one more. Once again, the feet will come back into hips width. How close you can get heels towards sits bones. And then the arms either by your sides or even grabbing the outer edges of your mat. Slide your shoulders underneath your body a little more. Lift your hips just an inch or two. Try to pull your heels towards your shoulders. Again, if that's not resonating, just let it go. Press through your feet a little bit more. Lift your hips up. If the knees are splaying a little bit, that's okay, but not too much. Feel the inner thighs are activated, that you're hugging in towards that midline. Some of you might be able to interlace your fingers under your back, straighten your arms, and walk the arms underneath you. So you're more standing on the backs of your arms and shoulders. The spine is lifted off the floor. Take one more big breath in. Exhale, release your hands if you have them. Roll your spine down. And again, heel toe your feet wide. Let your knees drape together. After doing back bends, we want to resist doing any extreme movements. Right? We just had a big arc in the spine, so we just want to let things settle a little bit before we round or do any other counter movements. So now that we've been here, we'll start by taking the arms out either into a T or a field goal arm, and then just let your knees drape left and right. This is called windshield wiping of the knees. You may feel a nice release in your low back. Right? This movement is soothing the muscles in the low back, relaxing the muscles. When you're satisfied, come back to stillness. Take your left knee to your chest and grab a hold of it. Extend your right leg forward. And then we'll drag the left knee across the body to twist. You'll notice I shifted my hips to the left. You can try that just so it's easier to stack one hip on top of the other. And then the left arm will reach wide. If this twist is too much, feel free to draw both knees in and take the same twist we had at the beginning. By using just one knee, we can actually let the top knee drift a little closer to the floor and therefore deepen the twist. Remember to expand your breath. Make space where there lacks space. Start to gently bring it back to center. Even out your hips, and we'll switch. The right knee in, the left leg forward. And then you'll drag your knee across the body to the left. Again, if it's useful, you can shift your hips to the right a little bit. Reach your right arm wide and settle. If you suffer from sciatica pain, this is a great posture to have in your arsenal. You can take this and just put a couple pillows underneath your knee and then just kind of hang out here for 4 or 5 minutes on each side. It'll work wonders. And start to bring it back to center. Again, even out your hips. And then we'll draw both knees into the chest. Take your knees as wide as your armpits out to the side. And then you can either stay here or take full happy baby, which is reaching your hands for your feet. Either edge is fine, but the outer edge of your feet is just a better position for the shoulders. Draw your knees down towards the ground while maintaining stacked joints, like you're squatting on the ceiling. Once again, acknowledge the curvature of your spine. If your chin is lifted, narrow that down. And then you'll also likely feel that your low back is pressing into the ground. Right, naturally, we're reaching for the feet, so there's some rounding that happened. If you can try to press your tailbone down and arc the low spine, even if you don't get a lot of room there, just try lifting your low back. That's going to elongate the spine, and it might feel quite nice. You can rock a little side to side. That would feel good. Whenever you're ready, you'll release your feet. Bring 1 and then 2 feet down to the ground. Now I'll invite you to come into your final resting pose here. Because we did some back bends, you may feel more comfortable leaving a bend in your knee. That could look like feet wide with the knees together. That could also be feet together with the knees draped wide, and you could always put your blocks underneath for support. And of course, traditional corpse pose is always an option, just legs long and the arms resting by your sides. As you get yourself settled, bring your awareness back to your breath. Let the weight of your body and your energy settle into the ground. So this is where I leave you. I encourage you to stay as long as you can for a little rest. Just let the practice sink into the body. That might be a minute or 2 or longer if you have it. I thank you so much for tuning in with me. Namaste.